As you were able to see the picture in the film, in the photo, Mr. Clarence Henderson is here today, 60 years later, from the lunch counter movement. We also have Ehphex Media, Mr. Tumaini Johnson and Timothy McCain, who were mindful about creating or recreating the lunch counter scene. So we've invited both Mr. Henderson, because it's Black History Month, and so in honor of Mr. Henderson and his commitment to agitating, let me hear you whisper, agitate. Agitate. And so we know that Frederick Douglass used that phrase when he spoke to a student from Howard University who interviewed Frederick Douglass. He says, what can our generation do to continue what you've started? And what did Frederick Douglass say? Agitate. So we're now going to shift our attention from the video clip from Ehphex Media and open up the floor to you, the press conference. This is a press conference scene where you as reporters have prepared questions for Ehphex Media and Mr. Henderson. So we will now allow the presentation to turn to you. So we will start with question number 1. And our camera crew, if you will take your places, and we will begin with question number 1.
We've invited Ehphex Media along with Mr. Henderson to join us because of your recent short film Lunch Counter. Why did you choose Lunch Counter movement to film?
She chose to make the film. Good question. We chose to make the film Lunch Counter because of the actions that some young folks back in the 60s, such as Mr. Henderson, did in real life that you wouldn't possibly maybe be able to see or understand if I didn't make the film. So I made the film so that way people like yourself can see what happened years ago that was very important.
How did you know who, what, and where to produce the film?
Well, there's a thing called research, right? So you go to the library if you want to get some information. You come to the library and you read about history or about important people, important events that happened, and you collect all of this information. You put it into a story format. So that way, once you have all that information that you researched, you can create a story that you can convert into actual film. I would love to. Actually, I'm glad that Mr. Henderson is here to give me some more, help me with more of my research to see what happened after this particular day and things that went on in his life that me possibly could make a part 2 of.
Why did whites decide to treat blacks wrong?
I'm going to pass that off to you, Mr. Henderson.
That was an era of time known as Jim Crow, where blacks were still in a form of slavery, and they were thought to be less than, and so they came out with this law called Jim Crow, which said separate but equal, but with separation there can be no equality. And so there were those that still, as of today, think that they're better than somebody else. And in the words of Dr. King, they chose to see us and look at us based on the color of our skin and not the content of our character.
One of the great statements to the next generation from Mr. Frederick Douglass, who went from slavery to the statement in Washington, D.C. to agitate. We value your opinion. What do you think he meant when he said agitate?
Agitate means to stir up something, to call attention to something that you want to change, to make a difference. And so Frederick Douglass, being one of those that was born in slavery, wanted to change some things so that it wasn't about the color of your skin, it was about who you are as a person. And he had come up through slavery and had become very accomplished, and he knew that somebody had to speak up in reference to the difference that they were making. So the whole idea was to call attention to and inequality that was going on in America.
Is it called? Six.
In what ways have we followed his advice?
Read it again.
In what ways have we followed his advice?
Well, one of the ways was that Jim Crow was put on trial. Jim Crow was found guilty. We no longer have any Jim Crow laws in this country. However, there are people that have differences of opinion, and we have laws in this in the United States to deal with these things. But you cannot legislate a person's heart. So we have come forward a great deal. We have begun to do a lot of things. One of the biggest ways is that when I look around this classroom, because I never went to an integrated school. I attended school where it was all blacks